This comes from the basic idea that if you think about it, okay, if you look at all the major wisdom traditions, there's this idea of action without action, right? In the Taoism, it's called Wei Wu Wei. It means it's this profound sense of allowing where there's no doer trying to do anything, but everything is just happening naturally because everything is in balance with the Tao, and it's really this higher movement of the Tao moving through you. So instead of trying to be, you are just being. And we see versions of this in really all of the major wisdom traditions, whether it's Buddhism, various sects of Hinduism, even in Christianity we see it. For example, in the book of Hebrews it says to strive to enter into the rest. And this is alluding to the idea where in Christian mysticism Jesus has been resurrected and he is now sitting on the throne at the right hand of the Father. He's no longer striving, but he is fully entered into that rest. He is fully crowned. He is fully at rest, sitting on the throne, and he's completely in charge. And the idea is that all of our practice is allow us to get to this place where we're no longer struggling. But we're just being, we're just allowing, and we're being lived. Rather than trying to live, we're being lived. We're being breathed. And one of the ways it is also expressed in Taoism, and particularly in the Tao Te Ching, is it says to know the yang, but to remain rooted in the yin. So we have the yang, which is really, it's the mind. It's the effort of doing. It's action. It's male. It's doing in the world. It's striving to make something to happen. Efforting. The yin is feminine, and it's this really symbolic of our own spirit. Our spirit is already enlightened. It doesn't have to try to be enlightened. It doesn't have to try to meditate. It is meditation itself. So when we're efforting and struggling with the mind, we're really in this yin mindset. And so when I say just allow yourself to be meditated, I am really alluding to this idea of getting so deeply in touch with our spirit that the energy of our spirit starts flowing so strongly that it meditates us. It creates such a samadhi, such a meditative absorption, that it's doing all the work for us. We no longer have to struggle with the mind because we're just simply relaxing and letting go, and we're using our intention to keep our attention focused on the area between the eyebrows and allowing that energy to flow so that the energy does the work. We're allowing ourselves to be meditated. And in the Tao Te Ching, when it says know the yang but remain rooted in the yin, what it's alluding to is that part of us that thinks, plans, tries to make happen. When we're in Wei Wu Wei, when we're really allowing ourselves to be lived, we know that part of ourselves, but that's not the part of ourselves that we're rooted in. We're rooted in our part that is the spirit, that's already enlightened, that's already awake. And we're just allowing ourselves to be lived and to be breathed. And I find that when I remind myself of this, and then when I remind others of this when I'm leading meditations, that it just helps as a guiding principle. It helps you to just get to let go of struggling, to let go of trying, to let go of efforting, to let go of the idea that there's a doer who's meditating, right? Because the goal here, or part of the goal, is to really get to the point to where you realize there is no one meditating. There just is meditation, because that's what's really, really real. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps explain a little bit more there. And it's a nice. You can use this in your own meditations. Just allow yourself to be meditative. It helps you to just get back into that yin mindset. Now, there are various different traditions within the major wisdom traditions that agree with this basic principle of taking the yin road to enlightenment, allowing, really just cultivating this sense of allowing and letting go. When I was a part of an organization. It was actually a school that is affiliated with Buddhism, and when I went there, and I'm not in any way trying to harp on this particular traditional organization. I'm just sharing this because this is a part of my experience, and it may help you. But when I went there, I had the idea that this was going to be a very open place, that could be very open-minded to other traditions. And what I quickly found out within my first few months there was that was not the case at all. They had their own teaching, their own tradition, which I fully respect, but it's one that basically said that if you're one of the ways you know that your meditation is working is you start to experience great boredom, and then eventually you start experiencing a lot of troubled emotions, and you just start becoming more and more aware of your own misery. And one of the things that they kind of teach there, I'm only saying this because it's what they kept telling me when I began to tell them of my blissful experiences in meditation. They kept telling me, well, you must be doing something wrong. You're probably trying to avoid your misery. Because when I got to know a lot, even the teachers who were teaching this, a lot of them they weren't incredibly happy people. They really weren't. And I would tell them, and I only would tell them this because I was being graded. So I didn't really want to tell them everything I was experiencing because I didn't think they would accept it. But I was going into blissful states of samadhi. The more I would let go of my misery, the more I would let go of my attachments and aversions, the more blissful it got, and the more the energy began to meditate me. And I no longer had to struggle with my mind as much as I normally used to with other forms of meditation. And when and part of the grading system is they would grade you on your, how well you were meditating and what your experiences were. So I was being honest about what I was experiencing, but I found that they would take, a lot of them would take offense to this. They would get angry that I was experiencing this kind of samadhi, and they would say, oh, you must be doing something wrong. You must be trying to escape your misery. And so I would go back to my Shaktipat teacher and I'd tell him, hey, this is what they're telling me. And he goes, Eric, with all due respect, I've had the same experience when I meditated with a certain sect of Buddhists, and they were telling me the same thing, except for one of the more realized Rinpoches in this particular system. he told me, he goes, don't listen to these guys. You're just keep doing what you're doing. You're going in the right way. And finally, he told me, Eric, he said, I recommend that you leave because they're basically wrestling with your development and trying to get you to keep from going in what's been working for you. And all nothing but respect and love to them, but I think you've evolved past their version of Buddhism. And so I say that because again, it comes back to this idea that when you really start to let go of struggling with your misery, of struggling with your mind, of struggling with your emotions, and even struggling with judging yourself, because like I want to go back, guys, look, I am not perfect. I make mistakes. I occasionally still lose my temper. Okay, I'm not perfect. But the difference is I'm learning to just let go of my judgments, to love myself unconditionally, and get back to center and just allow myself to be lived, allow myself to be meditated. And the more I practice meditation, the easier it gets to just allow myself to be meditated, at least more consistently.